Cattle are part of the solution, not the problem.
The cows need a new PR firm. It hasn't been.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey everyone, I'm Morgan, co-founder of Primal Kitchen and host of the Primal Kitchen podcast. Today, I'm super excited to be chatting with the founders of Alexandre Family Farm, Blake and Stephanie. They are fourth generation dairy farmers from California who met at Cal Poly while they were both studying agriculture, eventually got married and have 5 children. They bought their current farm in 1992 and have been there ever since. In 2002, they became certified organic farmers and began studying soil and nutrient density on their farm. Through their studies, they learned the difference between A1 and A2 beta casein proteins in milk, and they began to breed A1 out of their herd. Today, they have a large herd of 100% A2 genetic cows and sell only A2 organic milk and yogurt nationwide. Alexandre Family Farm's the first certified regenerative dairy and egg ranch in the U.S., and they're also certified organic and certified humane. Before we get started, a brief reminder that any and all opinions and views shared by hosts and guests on this podcast are the speaker's own and do not represent the view of Primal Kitchen or its affiliates or parent company. Whew, that was a mouthful. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi, Morgan.
We're great, thanks.
Yeah, we're great.
So good to have you. I'm a big fan of your brand. I love what you're doing. I'm passionate about this regenerative ag space. And, you know, Mark and I love the whole A2 dairy story. So, I mean, I think we should just start at the beginning. How did you guys get into this farming thing? And how did you learn about regenerative agriculture and A2 dairy?
Sure. Well, we were both born and raised as dairy farmers. So our parents were doing that already. Stephanie in Southern California, Mia more in the north here, where we currently live in this area or region. And then, like you mentioned in the intro, we met at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo a long time ago, 35 years ish, a little more than that. 37 years ago. And so for us, we started out dairy farming in Stephanie's community in a rented facility with her parents. And we were down there in Southern California for 4 years in the Chino area. And then the opportunity came to buy the ranch that we're currently on. And for me, it was a chance to go home. And more importantly, it was just a chance to get out of large-scale industrial dairying in the Southern California area and get back up here where we grow a lot of grass and graze cattle, which is certainly more where my upbringing and comfort was.
Yeah, when I met Blake, it was neat to see where he was from and go into the town of Ferndale, Northern California, right on the ocean, and just see the beauty of the dairy that's grass-based. I'd never seen that concept before, growing up in basically confinement dairy facilities. And it was neat to see that. And then when this ranch came for sale 2 miles north of where Blake grew up, or 2 hours north of where Blake grew up, it was just awesome. The creeks on it and the ocean breeze. And we instantly kind of became environmentalists too. You just kind of can't help but protect what's there and then make it better. And it really changed our mindset back then in 1992. It was kind of like when you really started hearing about environmental movements and things like that. And then we realized, hey, we're in agriculture and we're really the biggest environmentalists there is, because we want this property to be better for our next generation so that they can also want to farm here or dairy here.
Love it. And so you guys then took over after college, got married, had kids, started dairy farming. And then how did you get into the regenerative ag movement and learn about A2?
Yeah,
I would say one of the first early things that we learned was through a soil agronomist who became a really great friend, and learning about organic matter in the soil. And
now
so
you said, I'm sorry, a soil what?
Agronomist.
Okay, I've never heard of that before. What is that?
helps farmers grow stuff.
Okay, cool.
Yes, by looking at the soil. And he really had a natural kind of an organic bent as his personality and what he believed in, and really watch that organic matter and feed that soil and feed the soil biology. And really what we were paying attention to is the organic matter in the soil. And then we would want to grow that and grow it as in make the soil healthier. And when you do that, you do know you don't want to do any harm to that soil. You want to protect it. You want to build those microbes and things. And that was a concept we learned early on. And the other concept we learned is that we had a lot of riparian zones where the cows were still going into the creek and stuff. So we worked on building fences and planting trees in our riparian zones. And as we worked on that organic matter in the soil, and the grass just got greener and stayed greener longer and better water holding capacities. And at the same time, the creeks just got more beautiful and more wildlife came around. It was like, build it and they will come. And then the bald eagle nest came, and the Roosevelt elk came, and the Lucian geese came, and the frogs, just the populations grew. And then we got known for salmon in our creeks. And so all that just happened, but it didn't just start last week. It was something we started 30 years ago when we bought our ranch.
Got it. So you've kind of been doing some of these practices for a long time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And I would answer the question in that, we were like everyone else selling conventional milk, trying to, participate in high yield production agriculture, which is what they teach you at universities. And as we were doing that and couple that with all this environment that we're kind of find ourselves in, and this beautiful opportunity to kind of send the cows out to get their own grass and switch gears. And it's not about the high production. It's about, kind of being in harmony with nature. And so it was a nice fit. And so a few years into having our farm here, along came a creamery looking for organic dairy production. And so we became the 9th certified dairy in California, and started selling milk into the Bay Area for Clover Stornetta brand. And that was their beginnings, using our milk. And then it just kept growing from there, and eventually led to us starting our own brand.
Yeah, and I would say early years, how do we raise calves organically? There's certain things that were harder. The cows and the pastures, that was the easy part, because of course we don't want to use antibiotics in the cows at all. And of course we want to take care of our pastures. We had natural nutrient water and compost and stuff we'll talk about later. But learning how to do certain things organically, we didn't know where to go. And somebody suggested we go to the Midwest, Acres USA conference. And we went there, and all these classes of people that were teaching farmers how to be organic. And Blake read a book called The Biological Farmer by Gary Zimmer, and he since has become a great friend. And Blake got passionate about the soils and grasses, even though he's an outstanding cowman. And I got to know Sally Fallon and Weston A. Price Foundation, and became this nutrient-dense foodie mama for our 5 little kids at the time. So it really focused our passion and our drive for what we believed and stood for. We're people of faith, and just feel that is God given to us to have that passion, and therefore very purposeful as farmers, what we do.
I love it. It's awesome. So what did it look like at the beginning versus what it looks like now? Like, what are you guys doing different? What would you say? Or maybe when you grew up, like, how different is it?
Yeah, in a lot of sense. So there, when you say the beginning for us, we're thinking back 30, 35 years ago and what dairy farming was like then, right? As we're getting out of college. We are certainly a long ways from where that was. And so we're very, very different. We've left that high yield production ag model and kind of embraced something that is way more like how I grew up. How my grandfather, my great grandfather, and even my dad were doing things back in the 70s and the 80s. And then, the high yieldness of dairy farming really hadn't hit our region, because I grew up where we were always grazing cows and leaning on the grass, and it was a big part of our annual program. And that's still what we do today. But yet what we do today is very different than the conventional dairy industry by quite a bit, where you've got a large set of cows in a confined operation where they're bringing the feeds to them, and those feeds are grown all over the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say, and I mentioned our calves earlier, baby calves are the hardest to raise organically when you first learn. And after we really nailed it down, and with the research and concentrating on nutrient density for the calves as well as our family, we really saw, wow, we can raise super healthy calves better, I think.
Why is it hard? Like, they require a lot of antibiotics, or they're
we grew up in an industry where you use low dose antibiotics in your calves every day.
That's crazy.
It-
Every day, just
every
no matter
day.
what.
That's what we did. And when we pulled that away, that was not good. And so that was a learning curve.
When
And
you
then
pulled it away, were they getting sick or what was happening?
yeah, but then we learned it was the way they were housed. So then we had to change the housing and put them outside and get ventilation. And so there was so many things we were just doing because it was easy. And now we knew a new approach. And so today, we learned this 22 years ago. And so we've come so long in just a few years after that, that first and second year learning to raise those calves organically. Now we're so proud of our organic calf program with the way we do, and they're so healthy. We don't need to use the antibiotics. And of course, the industry itself has changed since then.
Yeah.
Where they're not doing that anymore. But that was scary that first time because I was involved with the calves and cared about them.
I think the point is that I'd like to just simplify it down in that when you go from conventional agriculture and especially any animal production, there's a lot of tools in the toolbox that the conventional farmers can lean on. And when you go organic, it's like all of a sudden nothing's qualified. And so you got to either find substitutes or natural remedies. And that learning process is the scary part. It's all new. And eventually you kind of embrace it and you understand it, and it just makes so much sense. And so I like to say that, we're not really dairy farming any different than my great grandfather did. We're just, kind of marketing things differently, but the cows still go out and eat grass, and we feed them very little bit of grain, and we take the milk that we get. And so it's a very natural setting. We've certainly learned more about cows and farming, and we're trying to implement, efficiency curves where we can.
I love it. And how big is your operation now?
It's quite large. We kind of farm in 3 counties here in Northern California, the 2 on the coast. Humboldt, which is my home county. Our oldest son and his wife are down there in Ferndale right now. And then up here in Del Norte County, right on the Oregon border, both on the coast. And then Eastern California, where we grow hay over in Modoc County, next to Oregon and Nevada. So we're kind of spread out here across the North State on a total of 9,000 acres, certified organic. So it's quite a bit, and we milk quite a few cows. We've got about 9,500 head of total livestock, counting the milking cows, which would be about half of that number, and then the young stock and some grass-fed steers.
It's amazing. And have you seen growth? Like, are people, I know people are catching on in my world, but like, what have you guys experienced just macro on a macro trend basis as you've been selling organic dairy?
And you're saying growth where? I guess at what part of the industry?
Like, are you feeling like demand is really there? Like if like people are catching on, like people care?
Well, we are definitely a high dollar, high value brand, both with our eggs, which is under the Alexandre Kids label, and our dairy products, which is Alexandre Family Farm. And so we never set out to be cheap. We set out to be the best in the category. In other words, we're going out of our way to make the absolute best egg and the best milk, and even putting extra butter fat in our products and things like that. And so we're trying to be an extreme category leader, and sales are just fine from our point of view. And I don't know.
Yeah, so we felt that we had something really unique. The regenerative practices kind of came about the last couple of years. A name came to what we really were doing, but the fact that we were A2 and grass-based was a standout. And when we wanted that to get to the market, an organic version of A2, we went to different processors, and they weren't interested in segregating the milk to do, their own brand of A2 organic milk. And so that's when we set out to launch it, because there was a reason why people were leaving dairy. They couldn't digest it, autoimmune diseases being linked to it, just different reasons, or they got the phlegm in their mouth and they didn't care for it anymore or something. And we had many reasons to bring back people to dairy and to stand out. And it's difficult where we farm because we're away from the market, and our cows are grazing on grass, so they give less milk per cow, but it's more nutrient dense because of our breeds of cows that are higher in protein. So we are watching something grow that's unique. Regular organic milk, I'm not so sure about.
Yeah. So talk to me about A2. What does that mean?
A2 is the digestible protein in dairy. So it's the casein, the beta casein morphine is an amino acid chain. And people drink dairy and they find they can't digest it. And that's because that protein is foreign. It mutated, they think about 1,000 years ago, where it just changed, and they call it the A1 protein came in. And people drink it, they can't digest it. Now that it's in their belly, it causes the lactose to ferment, and they feel like, oh, I got lactose intolerant. Well, 60, 70, 80, 90% of people that we talk to, a lot of them will say, wow, I thought I was lactose intolerant, but in reality, it must have been the casein because I can drink your milk, no problem. And then also when they digest it, it goes through their system and it crosses into their whole body system. And then they have these autoimmune diseases that doctors say, get off gluten. Gluten's a protein, or get off dairy. You might be sensitive to the dairy protein. And we have had people come up to us that drink raw milk and they switch to our milk. And since our milk is A2, they notice that their dark circles under their eyes left, their eczema left, their autoimmune diseases left, but they can digest it just like raw milk, even though they couldn't digest the other milk on the shelf in the grocery store, they could digest ours. So in reality, it was the casein they were sensitive to all along, not missing the lactase that's killed in pasteurization.
Yeah, I would add that, you have a lot of listeners and consumers that are probably, dairy intolerant or believe they are. And like Stephanie was saying, most of those folks think that it's lactose and that's the milk sugar, but it's primarily not. And I would just point this out, that all mammal milk is A2, including human breast milk. And so, babies are okay on breast milk and then start to have issues going over to cow's milk and different things. And it's not always it's not the lactose, because there's lactose in breast milk. It's the A1, we believe, that isn't present in the dairy industry, in the cattle industry, and it's simply a mutated gene. God didn't put it there. It wasn't meant to be there, and and it shouldn't be. And so all we do is a simple DNA test to find out what our cows inherited from their parents, and they get a gene from each parent. And so if they got an A2 gene from the dam and the sire, then we call them A2. And that is simple.
Yeah, Mark's like really passionate about A2 dairy.
Yeah.
Mark. Yeah. And wasn't there like some crazy like trademarking stuff where you can't didn't someone trademark A2 so you can't even market?
Yeah, it was patented for 10 years. A lot of concepts, and couldn't even legally breed and all this stuff. You couldn't select for it. Yeah, we couldn't even buy semen selected for A2 legally. We certainly did, but the A2 Corporation is the group that did that, and they're out of New Zealand originally, and then Australia-based company now, and they've been marketing in the United States as well as China and Asia, and they only do conventional. We argued and asked them and wanted them to partner with us to help develop an organic option for A2 milk, and they wouldn't do it. So, we got tired of hearing no for 3 or 4 or 5 years and decided just to do it on our own 6 years ago.
I love it. Awesome. So that's what prompted you guys to launch your own brand and
right
into the space. And now people can find you guys nationwide at Sprouts and Whole Foods. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. And other high-end natural food stores, generally we're up there.
Or ask the grocery buyer to bring it in.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone listening, we did a lot of that. People asked for Primal Kitchen when we launched. A lot of people would go to their grocery store and ask hey, can you carry Primal Kitchen? So it's a great way to support the brand. Yeah. When are you guys getting into yogurt or ice cream?
Yeah, so we do have yogurt as well nationally.
I love it.
So we have kind of two lines of milk, if you will. Some of our cows are 100% grass fed. So we do have 2 dairies where we don't feed grain, and that milk is extra unique. I think it's nutritionally extra special. We've been part of that. We've had that going on for about 12, 13 years, and we're quite proud of our grass-fed milk. Our regular line, we feed some grain to our cows, and we then focus on high fat and those products. And a lot of nutritional goodness in what we sell. But yeah, so our yogurts across the country are also there in Whole Foods and Sprouts, and we're going to be expanding that grass-fed line to a couple of different flavors and different options.
Awesome.
People seem to really appreciate the grass-fed version.
I would imagine. Okay, you talked earlier about being a nutrient dense mama and how that like kind of parlayed into your calves and your own kids. Tell me more about what that looks like. I have 2 boys, another boy on the way. I'm actually like super pregnant right now, like 36 weeks pregnant, but
Congratulations.
There's like a real big bump.
Yeah.
But,
Our daughter too.
but yeah, I would love to know just what that looked like raising kids, with the knowledge and just the approach and the tie-in with the Weston A. Price Foundation.
Yeah, I always think of what did we eat 2,000 years ago? What did we eat 200 years ago? And focus on that. Lots of whole milk, whole foods, of course. What was in season? And I see a push all the time, especially in schools, fruits and vegetables, but that wasn't in season all year round. But we certainly had milk, meat, and eggs and animal fats. And that's where the nutrient density is in foods. And I'm a big kefir person. I've had the same kefir grains that I started with in 2002, and still we drink kefir all the time. I love taking our milk and fermenting it into the kefir. And I used to, when I'd pick up the kids after sporting events, I always had the mason jars full of kefir, and they would be hungry and they just guzzle that down. I hide egg yolks in any smoothie I can, lots of egg yolks. That's a big nutrient dense. They need that animal fat. I'm hiding organ meats in spaghetti sauce and things like that. I don't run away or I don't get into the really sprouting so much. I think it's all to the degree your body needs to heal. I would say I'm more paleo, but dairy emphasizing in our eating.
I would add that this education that Stephanie gained and we learned together, and eventually our whole family and employees learned as well, certainly led us down to developing things like 100% grass-fed milk, and that we fully understand the nutritional differences there, mm-hmm. and that the conjugated linoleic acid, the CLA content is very high, and it's kind of perfect food in that regard. So as we've done that, then the other thing we did, I'm just gonna look at our label real quick, and we've got a little QR code on this grass-fed milk, in that the consumer can then just kind of hit the QR code, compare it with the date on the label on the top of the lid, and see exactly what the butterfat was from the cows. And so we're not standardizing this milk or changing it in any way, shape, or form. We're just taking it from the cow and pasteurizing it and bottling it. And so it's the butterfat may be 4.3% or 4.7%, depending on the season or the week.
I love it.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Are your kids still really like healthy today? Like how did they like buy into the movement? Are they all involved in the business? Like what's family like?
Family. So our oldest 3 are married, and 2 of them are going to have babies anytime.
Oh, congrats.
July and August. And so we're excited about that. And they are very much involved in the business. Our oldest son is, he and his wife live 2 hours south on our he's the 5th generation at that dairy farm, at the dairy that Blake's great-grandfather started.
Cool.
And so they're very health conscious, very much, being that she's pregnant too, watching what she eats and listening to what a lot of us are telling her about the eating eggs every day and nutrient density, getting those good foods in for that baby. Joseph he does a lot of our analytics and business forecasting and things like that. And he also is the manager at the dairy there. Our son Christian handles logistics for trucking and our farming, where we are harvesting this time of year with making grass silage. And our daughter Vanessa, who is also pregnant and due next month, is our dairy manager. She loves the cows. She has her rubber boots on and she's out with cows and heifers and where they're grazing next, and always talking to Blake about what to do and what not to do. So that's really fun to have the oldest 3 involved in the business. And yes, they are very much aware of food and what they should be eating. And And one of the things that, and I still read today, I was just reading last night in a book just about cancer and how sugar paralyzes the immune system, and all, carbohydrates basically are breaking down to sugar. And that's always a concern, that so much carbohydrates are being eaten by Americans, and the sugar. And so that's something that our kids focus on too.
Yeah, absolutely. We're big on the it's in everything. It's like,
It is. Yeah.
We launched the mayonnaise when we launched Primal Kitchen. Our first product was mayonnaise, and we were looking at competitors on shelf, and we're like, there's sugar in mayonnaise.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Who needs sugar in mayonnaise? This is nuts. It is nuts. I think people are finally kind of catching on and, looking for alternatives. So we're right there with you on that one. You guys are just so lovely. I just want to come raise my kids on the farm with.
Come visit.
No problem. At least visit.
Sounds amazing. So tell me a little bit, this regenerative agriculture is something I think, our audience is probably familiar with. I've had on the founders of Force in Nature, who founded Epic, and then Pasture Bird down here by me in Temecula. And I love what they're doing. But what does regenerative agriculture even mean? And, what's your take on just that movement in general?
Yeah, sure. So what does it mean? Yeah. I guess I would start first with, the folks that you're talking about, including Will Harris out in Georgia. These are all good friends and kind of mentors, and we love seeing those kind of people out there in the marketplace. And we certainly love seeing them at shows and visiting and telling stories. And so we're kind of all running in the same circles. And what does regenerative mean to us? Really, to us, it's just kind of a new, cool and groovy word that defines who we are and what we've been doing since we really learned about organic matter and how important it is in our soil. And then eventually that taught us that, wow, that organic matter is 56 or 7% carbon. And so now we're sequestering carbon, and we're part of the solution, not the problem. And it's hard to achieve that in those levels without cattle. And so cattle are part of the solution, not the problem. And so we've learned a lot about that. And certainly cows have had a bad rap and a bad, I think, image. And for instance, methane has a 10-year half-life, and in other words, it's cycling in and out of the atmosphere. Whatever's going in this year is leaving 10 years from now, and we've got less mammals alive on the in the United States now than we did when the buffalo were here. So, I don't understand why cows are always this evil consideration. It's really ugly.
Yeah, the cows need a new PR firm. It hasn't been.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think we're part of the the committee on that PR firm. In that, I remember we got interviewed by the Today Show, and we're walking out in the field, and they're Gotti, the interviewer, we're talking to him. In fact, his wife was pregnant and getting ready to have a baby. And, so he's thinking differently about nutrition and food. And I'm there explaining to him, like, Gotti, our cows, this is a plant-based system. We're walking on the grass. This is what the cows eat. This is the majority of what they eat. And, so we've got to wake up to that. And now that we understand how to be regenerative and truly build and increase carbon kind of cycling back into the soil and staying where it's supposed to be, which brings yields and efficiencies and ultimately more profitability to the farmer. And so it's a good thing from everybody's perspective.
Yeah.
And I would add, if there was one term to define regenerative, I would call it soil health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone I talk to in this space that's adopted this method of growing grass or feeding chickens or, bison, whatever it is, it's just always it's so interesting to hear how the land was terrible and then the land became beautiful and all of these animals came back. And it's hard to discredit Mother Nature, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, there's more knowledge there than we have. So it's interesting.
Yeah. I appreciate your comment there. Really, we're honoring this system that Mother Nature and God created, and understanding it and all the biology that live in the soil, And our job as farmers and ultimately stewards of the land and stewards of that biology is to kind of do no harm. And once we understand what they like and what they don't like, and we do that, then yields go up and nutritional density goes up. And so health goes up, and we can think better and work harder and smarter. So it's just a really win-win-win.
I love it. Who's inspiring you guys these days?
Consumers. When we hear from that mom where her 7-year-old boy couldn't drink milk, and they got our milk, and he takes a drink and he goes, "Mommy, this is heaven in a jug." Or the parents of autistic children that call and say, "Wow, my kids couldn't do dairy because it made them hyperactive, and they can digest your dairy just fine and they're calm after they drink it." In fact, it's parents of autistic children that are funding research about A2 dairy and its benefits. So if you have listeners that have autistic kids, take a look at what our organic A2 milk has to offer. That's inspiring. Our mentors, we love podcasts. I listen to several of yours. I love carnivore information. I love paleo information. I love the Wellness Mama, Sapien. There's just, anytime I'm doing something outside by myself, I will have a podcast on.
I love it.
So yeah, I'm inspired, I think, differently. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't do anything on the internet. I have,
you listen to YouTube.
YouTube.
Well,
I watch that. But inspired by just most recently, this morning, somebody said the Apostle Paul was a lot like a really smart entrepreneur who could adapt to change
when he learned new good information.
and I thought, wow, that's phenomenal. So that was on an earlier call this morning. But last month we had a visitor from his native country is Zambia, and his name is Francis Miles, and he wrote a couple of books, but one of his books is called I Speak to the Earth. And so it's the relationship from the Bible of kind of man's dominion over the earth, the animals, the fish, the birds. And it was just really it was a great awakening for me, because it reconfirmed a lot of stuff I already knew and understood and felt. And now I can verbalize it a lot better because I understand it better. And it's all about understanding the earth, and that we have dominion over the earth, and it's up to us to kind of demand our crops to perform well and the soil to grow well. And there's nothing wrong with high yields. And but you got to do it in harmony with nature, and not this uphill battle. And so that was really wonderful.
You steward it.
Yeah, I've always hated thistles and berry briars, which kind of haunt us around our farm. And it's just inspiring me to know that those are also called out in the Bible as in terms of thorns and weeds that are just not supposed to be there. And so it is our job to take them out and to keep them out. And so that's what I do as a farmer. That's what inspires me.
And definitely inspired by the Bible.
I love it. What does a day in the life of your diet look like?
Diet.
What are you guys eating over there?
Yeah, let me go first. Yeah, so when we started this brand in September of 17, and Stephanie and Vanessa, our oldest daughter, were up in Bellevue, Washington and Seattle area and kind of launching for about 2 weeks. And so I decided to, because of my YouTube experience, I decided to start fasting. And so it was really a neat experience. And so I just went without food for a long time and lost some weight, and which was really quite nice. And so I tend to start really slow in the day and basically don't eat anything until afternoon. But whatever we eat is super good food. For me, it's salami and sausage and all of our homegrown everythings and cheese. And we also make some cool grass-fed cheese.
I do love to cook, but now that the kids are out of the house, I feel like I don't cook as much, but I cook in bulk. So I'm taking things out of the freezer one more time kind of thing. But I start my day off with, I do a half decaf, half regular organic coffee blend and our whipping cream, and kind of drink a couple of those for the next 2, 3, 4 hours. And then I really don't eat my meal until lunchtime. Today I have hard-boiled eggs set to make. And then we have some really good local sourdough bread that a farmer does and his wife. And so I have that planned for lunch today, because we actually have people coming over in a little while for lunch. And then dinner I haven't started yet, but it could be a soup. It could be, we have some meat out. We'll have salad with it. I make our own dressing. I make a ranch blend with our yogurt and actually your mayonnaise.
I was going to say, I can send you some salad dressing. I mean, come on, you get with the program over there.
Yeah.
Last night we had some of our grass-fed tri-tip. So everything we eat is from we eat our own beef and pork and eggs and milk.
Do you guys sell any of your own beef, or you're just
we do kind of locals, and we don't. Yeah, that's not a venture that we're trying to expand on.
Yeah.
We sell to some of these other wonderful brands. In terms of our supply of livestock.
I love it. It's great. Okay. I love the fasting, but you keep mentioning this YouTube. What's going on with YouTube and you, Blake, over there? Like, I feel like I'm missing out on an inside joke.
Yeah. It shows up on our big TV, and I can sit in the chair in the evening and I can check out if the Warriors played last night, if they won, and I can watch it in 7 or 8 minutes. And
so this is like your TV. You just do YouTube.
I just do YouTube, and I'm a huge Tom Brady fan, and I try to watch all that stuff that's being chatted about, and very little politics and very little news, because it just gets really frustrating.
That'll kill you. I'm convinced. I mean,
he has a lot of grazing videos on, and you've learned so much.
Yeah, a lot of world agriculture stuff. I was watching last night a deal on Egypt and some cities they're building and restructuring, and it's really cool. They finally mentioned and showed on a map the city called the 6th of October, and I visited there 33 years ago on a leadership trail, and I have not been able to verify that city even existed. And there it was on YouTube last night.
I love it. I would love to see the recommended videos that are coming in on YouTube. If you're like following Tom Brady and also, and also ancient cities in Egypt. And this is amazing.
Yeah. And a lot of, I love watching a lot of stuff like out of, the different deserts, so all of Africa and even Australia, where they're doing different things with water regenerating and basically, reversing desertification and the drying up of cultures. And so that's been a big part of it. And 30 years ago, I spent a day with Alan Savory, and it was just a wonderful experience. It was me and him and another fella drinking wine on the beach in Santa Barbara. And my friend went to work for him full time after that. And I just kind of became a disciple of understanding that Alan Savory's, if you don't know him, he's a phenomenal guy, and he's on YouTube, one of the most listened to YouTube TED Talks.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, there's been a movement, right? Like, COVID happened, and there's a lot of people who are like, I'm out. Like, I'm out of the city. A lot of people are like leaving LA, Chicago. They're buying land in Tennessee or wherever, and they want to get involved in this kind of more like back to the roots, back to nature, holistic living. It kind of gave everyone a little bit of an excuse to shake up their lives. I think there's probably a little bit of a reality check that came along with that, right? That maybe, I don't know if I actually want to be a farmer, but I definitely want to support these people who are doing it right. But it seems like, it just seems from my perspective, like the momentum is certainly there. Like, regenerative agriculture to me feels like the evolution of paleo and keto. This is like where it's going, I think. So it's very cool to be chatting with people who have been doing it before it was cool. Let's see. This is my favorite question I ask everyone, but I'm curious, what's something most people don't know about you guys?
I actually have that one finally. I realized that.
What's yours?
So we are personal friends with Guy Fieri. And it's like, I get asked that type of question all the time. I'm thinking, why am I not saying that? So I've known him for 42 or 3 years. We grew up in the same little hometown of Ferndale, California.
No way.
Yeah. And in the last 5 years or so, we've become real close. And so we've got a lot of mutual friends, and we hang out together and we do different things, and we're both crazy busy, of course. And but it's a neat thing, and it's a lot of fun. He just released a TV show last weekend that featured a tour to our farm, which was really cool.
So cool. I love it. It's a good one. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
I think on me, everybody, I prayed I'd marry a dairy farmer. That was something I've always wanted to do because I love the life. I love milk. I love cows. And it just came so easy for me. I was the girl working with the cows all the time on my parents' dairy. But today my role is controller, and I deal with the books and the bank. I have a bookkeeper that helps me, an office manager and stuff like that. But I truly hate what I do every day as my position. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, how stressful it is sometimes to be that farm wife who does the books. And we're that farm that we launched a brand, and it's been really expensive. And so we're struggling. We didn't bring in investors. We're doing it on our own back. And so it's been harder than I ever imagined. I kind of deal with some of the book work first thing in the morning, and then I open my Bible and just find things to give me strength. And then I change my mindset and excited to go on. But it's been a trying venture to do this brand, and we're open up to some sort of help financially and seeing what's the next moves. And we just trust the Lord on that move.
Yeah, that inventory management will kill your cash flow real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you. It's expensive to do business in retail, and that's just the truth. I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're happy to anyone listening who wants to reach out, who's send good vibes your way, and I'm happy to follow up too more on that after the podcast. But,
this time of year, we really love this time of year. Of course, the grass is growing, cows are all out grazing, and they actually have been grazing since about February. But we do a little bucket calf program that maybe someday your kids could do. Kids in our community come and adopt a calf, and we started it 24 years ago as a way of teaching our kids' friends about our farm, what we do at our dairy farm. And now to our 24th year, last year we had 190 kids that adopted a calf at our farm. They come every week to work with their calf in a set meeting, and then they can come all throughout the week to work with their calf anytime. And then they're also learning different aspects of the dairy farm every week. And they learn that we are a family farm, and that we just wholeheartedly welcome them into our family farm. We just love that those kids and families kind of become ambassadors in our community about what we're about. We have the great questions from the kids that we can answer. And sometimes we bring up topics that we hear from consumers, what they might thinking about something on a dairy farm, and we answer that in a proactive way. And so it's just warms our heart to do that program. And we love it because even tourists come out and they see the kids with the calves in the halter, and then the tourists, next thing you know, are walking the calf as well.
I love it. Way to get the kids involved in the production of their food so they understand.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So consumers can find you guys. Give us a little pitch on where everyone can find you. Are you just doing the retail side now, or are you still providing dairy to people like Clover and stuff like that?
Yeah, we are supplying to Rumiano Cheese and to Humboldt Creamery and a couple others. Not so much Clover anymore. They've gone on their own.
I love Humboldt Creamery, like that Humboldt fog cheese is.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's a good stuff. As far as where we're at, it's kind of high-end natural food stores across the country. We're in a few thousand stores. Certainly Whole Foods and Sprouts would be the primaries. And then up and down the West Coast here, we're a little more densely populated. We'd be in more stores. But
yeah, if you go to our website, Alexandre Family Farm, there's a store locator, and people can put in their zip code and see where we're located and also what products are sold at each store.
Yeah.
And I said Alexander, but it's Alexandre, huh?
Yeah, we say Alexander, it's just easier, but yeah, it's definitely spelled backwards.
Yeah, so if somebody has to look it up or spell it, we kind of do the Dre.
Yeah.
But otherwise we say Alexander.
Okay, got it. So I didn't pronounce it wrong.
No, you're correct.
Okay, you. Okay. I was like, man, I'm blowing it from the intro with you guys.
No, not at all.
No, not at all. We're good.
I love it.
Steffi if we say Alexandre.
Yeah.
But if they have to spell it, we say it.
Well, Mark always, people would say, is he Mark Sisson? And we're like, no, he's just Mark Sisson. Like, you don't need to add you don't need to add the French accent or whatever it is
Yeah.
going on
Sure.
there. We're good. Well, it was so lovely chatting with you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time. And we look forward to educating our audience more about all the amazing things you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Yeah,
Yeah.
anytime. And you're certainly welcome to come see us, and your listeners are welcome to come see us. And we're kind of a wide open book here.
Yes, it's a beautiful area to visit. We have the redwoods, the sea, the rivers, such a great camping location. So come up and see us.
Fabulous. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.